images they see of themselves and the people who claim to speak on their behalf. That's what we're discussing on We the People today. I want to start with Shahrukh Khan. Shahrukh, My Name is Khan has been described by some as an important film, not just because of the circumstances in which it finally ran to full houses, but because you, as a Muslim in real life, have played a Muslim character on screen who isn't afraid to embrace his religiosity, and he's still a nice guy. We don't see too much of that in Hindi cinema, do we?
The reason we do have caricatures, whether they are Muslim or Hindus or even Christian for that matter, is so that, very quickly you understand this is where this person comes from, this is what it belongs to, and quickly it is very important that we need to know his religion in this film. So those are characters that we do. We are actually, we are to be blamed for that, all of us, filmmakers.
It's a kind of shortcut.
It's a shortcut ki ye ho gaya na abhi Christian hai. So Margaret, and she will come out of the church, or a Muslim hai Salim, and he'll have a beard, and it is not in any which way to say that it's a stereotype. It's just to do it fast, okay? But I think when people start making a film about a full character, I mean, it's not just coming in between like say Khan was when Karan decided. My logic was, and I could be wrong because I don't have full knowledge of Islam or being a Muslim, to be honest, but the logic was that can we play him like we play a hero? We don't need to play the religious part of him as the hero. Let it be absolutely normal, because I'm a Muslim and I don't wear it any other way. If you have a discussion on Islam, like all of us will be able to tell you here, all of us agree that yes, we can clarify point of views about Islam, how much ever knowledge we have depending on that. But we have never really gone out and started stating that this religion is good or bad or nice or fantastic.
But and isn't there a defensiveness sometimes?
Now, lately, I think there is a defensiveness that, everybody starts saying, and that's what we're trying to explain through the film, that listen, we don't need to be defensive. Just be yourself. Be your religion and be casual about it, normal about it, like you are in your houses. You don't need to really prove to the outsider any other way except by explaining.
But there's that scene in the film, you do your namaz. And you do your namaz despite the fact that a lot of the others around you are saying, nahi, yahan pe mat karo. And at least I can't remember the last time I saw, a hero who's also a namazi.
Yeah, maybe not in India. We have him. But to be really honest, jitna humko malum hai, namaz I was always taught, niyat se padi jati hai. You have to believe in it yourself. Nobody can teach you. We are taught 5 waqt namaz padna zaruri hai, but not every Muslim follows it. Somewhere down the line,
do you follow it?
No, I'm not able to follow it, and I'm very honest about it. I would love to, but I can't. But I think of Allah every moment of my life. So my logic is that let's play it like that. That see, अगर आप नहीं कर रहे किसी वजह से, अगर इस फिल्म के अंदर जो सीन था कि ये जो कपल है वो नहीं कर सकता, और एक और सीन भी है बहुत खूबसूरत जिसमें वो कहता है अल्लाह मियां समझ जाएंगे, you don't have to wear the hijab. So God will understand if you're stressed right now. But those who believe, go and do it, and it's absolutely all right. So we wanted it to be as normal without picking on the other character and saying, तुम क्यों नहीं पढ़ रहे नमाज? ये गलत है. It's okay, I understand. You're scared. You're defensive, you're worried right now to read namaz in front of people who you believe may not understand what you're doing or look down upon it or not rightly. But there's another character who says, but I think it's absolutely okay to go ahead and do it because niyat mein mere is waqt namaz padna hai. So I think I would say those are the teachings I believe in also, personally.
In your actual life? In
my actual life. I truly believe that it is, my religion does define me, most certainly. I'm very proud to be a Muslim. But what people would say is I'm an easier going Muslim. I'm a moderate Muslim, but I'm as Muslim can be, to be really honest.
I guess moderate Muslim is yet another stereotype that the media made up, the liberal media. Kabir Khan, you with the opposite argument, which I find interesting, about saying that in a sense our cinema would have arrived when you can have a regular hero who happens to be called Shahrukh, who doesn't have to be this person who wears his religion on his sleeve. And we haven't kind of got to that yet, have we?
No. Every time there's a Muslim character in a film, he's there because the plot demands a Muslim to be in that story. I'm saying Dostana. John can be a Muslim character. The film remains exactly the same, not a iota changes. Such as his name is Rizwan.
I mean, could that have been?
It totally could have been, but we didn't. And no one does. It's very
Nobody,
strange.
nobody
He's right.
has.
He
And
does
no
have
one
a
does.
point.
And
No
that's
one
the
does
point.
it.
Why doesn't anybody? Go ahead.
Neither have I. I mean, even my films, the protagonists have been Muslims because the story demanded it. But I'm saying that's the time when we'll actually be able to break out of stereotypes. The problem is right now, whenever we portray a minority, it's always a stereotype because that minority is his religious or her religious identity is playing a part in the story. We need to be able to slip in other sort of religious characters without having to deal with their religious identity. That's when we'll truly start breaking away from stereotypes.
But Alec, if I can ask you, is there a problem with that formulation? Because somehow in the way we all think, you're a liberal Muslim almost only if you're non-religious. And the moment you say, "Main namaz padhta hu," you're immediately branded a conservative, almost a fundamentalist.
Yeah, and then the problem is that I think Islam is misunderstood. And 2 years ago, in fact, this thing bothered me a great deal. And I asked the Maulanas and all the religious leaders of Islam, what is it? Is Islam saying that we believe in violence? And this is the biggest point. And I was told on very good authority that no, Islam in fact means peace, the very word. It's like shalom in Israel, which is used in the Jewish sense. And this means that in the Quran, that if you kill a single innocent person, it means that you're going against the Quran.
And
once that was clear, I then said, if so many fatwas have been passed by the religious heads of Islam, I then spoke to my friend Maulana Badni, and I said, why can't you pass a fatwa saying that anyone who kills an innocent person is going against the Quran? And I must say very courageously, and he'll tell you more about it, he then devised a fatwa which was pronounced in
Against
Delhi
terrorism.
in 2007. And just to come back to your main point, which is you don't have to be a liberal anything to be accepted in society. Idea of God, and this is what's misunderstood in our country, that the idea of God, He is a God of love and peace,
But
and
Alec,
not a
but
God
Alec,
of violence.
But Alec, nobody would disagree with you, and yet clearly it's not that simple. And there is a reason it's not that simple. And Karan, it's interesting that this is something that has obviously occupied you, whether it was your previous film, Qurban, in which actually there is an actual terrorist, a Muslim who takes to terrorism, or, My Name is Khan. Why is this such an abiding issue for you?
I'll tell you, 3 years ago, why the reason I really made this film was I was in New York and I was with 6 people. 3 of them were investment bankers, 2 of them Oxford graduates doing very well in New York, all of Indian or Asian orientation. And the conversation they had on that table, and I actually walked out an hour before that dinner ended, because I was completely disgusted with their thoughts and their ideologies about Islam, about Muslims, about their perception of the religion and what they thought. They're educated, affluent, well-traveled people.
True.
And it appalled me that they, with all that education, knew nothing and were talking complete nonsense. And I said, I'm not Muslim, but I'm human. I'm a human being, and I've been taught certain values by my parents. And I felt that people who have these graduation certificates lying so potently placed in their drawing rooms, and they show off their so-called liberal attitude towards the world at large, if they can go against an entire community on the basis of certain information they read in the New York Times or hear the news, I think then that is something that needs to be addressed by at least me. As a filmmaker, I have a platform that's impressionable, and that's the reason why I took it up.
Shahrukh, have you ever experienced the prejudice? Of course, Kabir has spoken about not getting a US visa a few times because of your name. You were stopped famously at an airport, held on to for a couple of hours. Some people thought that was the prelude to, My Name is Khan.
Yeah, right. Obama's on our speed dial.
But have you, let's say, post 26/11, do you feel, and because Najeeb Jung has written about this, the pressure on Muslims to wear their patriotism, to wear their badge of loyalty, do you feel that even at your stage in life, somehow that you are looked upon as a Muslim to make that condemnation clear all the time, that even you are expected to clarify your position on your religion and terrorism and fundamentalism and all the rest of it?
See, I'll be very honest. I mean, what I say sometimes on public platforms, and I say them because I'm an entertainer, I'm an actor, but I don't think ever if I'm questioned or have to clarify my stand on being a Muslim or an Indian, I would actually from my heart never clarify it. But yes, of course, if somebody's not understanding it, I'd say it. I've had no big prejudice against me, and that's what I want all the young Muslims to know very, very clearly, wherever they are coming from. That first, let's just get that out of our heads, that people are prejudiced.
But is that because you're Shahrukh Khan?
I don't know. See,
before you were Shahrukh Khan, I guess those were different times. We
I was
didn't
25, 20 to 25 is the time I can talk about. But I've never been picked on about my, the religion I belong to. And I really want this to be very clear. If we keep on also thinking, see, forget the fact that there is a certain section of people, because of the action of certain section of people, think that Islam is a violent religion. Accept it. But we as Muslims, I think we need to be very clear. Let's take this out that I need to explain it. Like, I'll tell you very honestly, my kids get stopped at security because their name is Khan also. It comes on that in America specifically. They have those SSS things on it. They go, so they say, why have you stopped? So I say, it's fun, we are special. So they just go down, they really do. We're taken to a different section with those feet on the ground. So they just stand and I say, we are special. You guys are stars. So, hopefully they'll grow up thinking they are Muslim. But I don't have any issue with it because I think it's all right. If action of some people have put a little blot, or to say the least, on the whole religion, I think we need to accept it and say it's all right, and we're not paying a price for it. That I won't do. I will never try to tell anyone. I'm not going to justify to anyone how good it is to be a Muslim. I'm not going to justify to anyone how wonderful it is to be an Indian. But I'm very clear that yes, we have to accept the fact that there is a blot. There is some kind of a dog. And if it is there, certain things are going to be said against us. This is the life we lead. These are the times we have created. This is the world we have chosen upon ourselves by the action of you. Now, that is why it is more important that if all of us start thinking like this, okay, look, let me go and let Karan decide. I like this guy, who is Shahrukh, he's talented, he's an actor, and yes, I'm not a specialist in my religion. I'm not a specialist.
Yeah.
Many a times, people ask me, do you do this? And I'm like, no, but I'm still a Muslim.
Yeah.
You do this, like even singing and dancing, in a certain sense, in a very
orthodox
sense,
it,
is the wrong thing to do. But I make a living out of singing and dancing. So how do I explain? My logic is, please can we understand all the clergy, all the mullahs, all the ulemas who know that they're specialists. Just because I'm not a specialist does not make me less of a Muslim.
But that's the hub, in a sense, of the debate. Najib Jung, you wrote a very interesting piece saying every time there's a terror attack, the Muslims are asked upon to prove their patriotism, in an overt way. But in a sense, what we're hearing here is that these are the times we live in. I remember Saif saying after Qurban, Karan, that, that old cliche that that we have to recognize the fact that while all Muslims are not terrorists, all terrorists in the way that we recognize them on the global stage are Muslim.
Barkha, Karwa aate rahe, Hindustan banta raha. It's 1200 years, 1300 years since the Muslims started coming to India. The Musliman is part of the DNA of India now. There is no denying that. What is concerning and disconcerting are posters like this. Where is this Muslim? I don't know. The Musliman of today is a regular guy. And
which image disconcerts you in particular? The skull cap and the beard, the woman in the burqa?
Absolutely.
There's a gentleman sitting next to you with the skull cap and the beard.
I entirely agree.
Yes.
But this type is perhaps less than 1% in India. The other guys are completely regular. I have a university with 20,000 boys and girls. The girls are dressed as these boys here, or these girls here. The boys are like this. You are a product. Kabir is a product of Jamia.
Yeah.
Are you different? The young Muslim of India today is part of this. India is in his DNA. He is looking for jobs here. He is looking to lead a life here, a regular life here. And so it hurts him a bit if there is a riot, if there is a pogrom in Gujarat, which he believes is state managed.
So are you saying, in a sense, and that's interesting because that's where I found the difference in Kabir and Shahrukh's argument when you talk about that's why the namaz scene is so compelling, because maybe Najib, you would argue that when Shahrukh wears his skull cap in the film, that's the stereotype of a Muslim that isn't the dominant image of the modern Indian Muslim.
No, the skull cap wearing during a cap is only a mark of respect, that when you bow to the Almighty, your head is covered. And therefore the skull cap is just symbolic of that thing. But in India, when the Islam came in and there was a huge influence of Hinduism over Islam in a way, then they learn to cover their heads. But that's only a mark of respect. Islam nowhere mandates to you that you should be covering your head all the time.
Dr. Naik, you're on TV more than I am. But the image, this construct of this image, which Najib says is actually offensive to a lot of people of our generation. Where does this construct come from? That when you think of the Muslim in visual images, almost always is somebody like yourself.
Actually, as far as Muslims are concerned, when I see a Muslim wearing a cap, having a beard, I mean, I'm proud of it. When I see a lady covering her head, I'm proud of it. First, you should understand what is the meaning of the word Muslim. Muslim means a person who submits his will to Almighty God. And Islam, to understand Islam, don't look at the Muslims. To understand Hinduism, don't look at the Hindus. Go to the original scriptures. So if you go to the scriptures, the Quran and the Sahih Hadith, I mean, I'm sorry I differ with Brother Najib, there are various Hadith in Sahih Bukhari, if you read volume number 7, in the book of dress, that the Prophet covered his head. So covering the head is the sunnah of the Prophet, So to say that covering the head is not a part of Muslimanity is totally wrong. The beard is a part of the Muslim identity. Wearing the cap, or at least covering the head, whether with a scarf or with a gatra like the Arabs do.
But sir, what about what Shahrukh said? And I know a lot of my friends say this, that and all of us, no matter what faith we come in, we interpret our faiths differently. We take away some things, we don't do some things. Does that make us any less of Hindus, Muslims, Christians?
No, as I said, that Muslim is a person who submits will to God. So you cannot say a liberal Muslim or a moderate Muslim. You can say a practicing Muslim, or partly practicing or non-practicing. That's more correct. And to understand Islam, don't look at the Muslim, don't look at me. Go to the scriptures. That is the reason I give talks on Islam and comparative religion.
But
so as far as the stereotype is concerned,
I find that a too narrow definition of Islam. I personally reject all rituals. But Islam is part of my culture and my ethos. I'm as proud a Muslim as anybody else on this podium. But I don't have to wear it on my sleeve, and I think that's too narrow a definition of Islam.
I'd like to make a point.
Yeah.
They talked about people being stereotyped because of the beard and the cap and the hijab. Then we should say that all Sikhs are stereotyped. Anyone who wears a turban and wears a beard. It's not the same. But what has happened, I'll tell you, in fact, India has become, in a strange sense, more liberal, because when Yusuf Khan entered the film industry and adopted the name of Dilip Kumar, that was a time when the whole of India was pretty prejudiced against Muslims, let me tell you. And Meena Kumari, who was she? She was also a Muslim. Why were all the names? Shahrukh is an amazing example of a Muslim who is now the Badshah of Bollywood with a Muslim name. He didn't have to change his name. So something has happened.
Would you have ever changed your name?
To Akshay Kumar, yes. I would never change my name.
But now the reverse is happening, Barkha. I know of boys who come from small towns, want to become actors. They change their name to Khan because they think that's the badge of honor.
That's the way to go.
Barometer of success.
No, it's Khan or Kapoor.
Sorry, Najib?
But Dilip Kumar has now become Allah Rakha Rahman.
Yeah.
That's the change.
But now he's no longer a star.
Yeah, Shahrukh, you want to make a point, and then Soha and Madani.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. That, I just want to know very clearly, and I'm a Muslim, and I want to know: is it more important for me to look Muslim and see Muslim, or to feel Muslim? I fully respect the scriptures. I fully respect all the hadiths. I have read the Quran in my own way, in Arabic and in English. But I think its time has come, and this genuinely is an appeal, that it is more important to feel Muslim, to
than
feel
to look
Hindu,
it,
than to look it. And if you do, if you do, it's absolutely cool. And if you don't, it's absolutely cool.
Dr. Naik, quick response to that, and I got two guests waiting to speak.
The best is to practice Muslim, is number one.
Yes.
Appearing is important, but lower down. I'm not saying appearing is the most important. For a person to practice Islam is more important. Beard comes lower down. Beard is not in the 70 major sins that it's not there.
But you know, what about what Kabir is saying? And there was a story of a young boy whom I interviewed who studies in a convent school in Madhya Pradesh. And he's a poor boy. And the school rules wouldn't allow him to wear a beard. He went all the way to the Supreme Court to say, I must be allowed to keep my beard. Otherwise, I prefer not to study. And he actually dropped out of school for a while because of that. The Supreme Court eventually ruled in his favor. And that is my next question, and I want to take that to Madani Saab. Madani Saab, you're a very interesting character for me, because at one level, you have organized, as Alex said, all of these fatwas against terrorism and all of that. But you also had a resolution against the singing of Vande Mataram. And these kind of resolutions, I know many of my friends would say is what stereotypes Muslims.
बात ये है कि वंदे मातरम गाना बिल्कुल अलग चीज है.
अलग चीज है.
हाँ, गाने के लिए जिद करना बिल्कुल एक अलग चीज है. कोई जबरदस्ती गवाना चाहे और नहीं गाएं, या हम ये कहें हम नहीं गाते, तो फिर हम स्टीरियोटाइप हो जाएंगे. टेररिज्म की मुखालिफत करेंगे तो बहुत अच्छे हो जाएंगे. ये जो डबल मामला चलता है, ये ठीक नहीं. अभी मेरे दाढ़ी नहीं हो और कुर्ता पैजामा नहीं हो, ये भी जो पगड़ी से तो लोग बहुत डरते हैं ना, कहते हैं ये तो. एक बच्चा एयरपोर्ट पे कहता है, मदनी साहब मामा मामा देखो बिन लादेन जा रहा है ना. तो क्या हो गया है, अब ये सब मैं उतार दूं तो मैं एक रीजनेबल मुसलमान हो सकता हूँ, एक ऐसा मुसलमान हो सकता हूँ जो बहुत अच्छा आदमी है. और अगर मैंने ये पहन लिया तो ख्यालात मेरे कितने अच्छे हों. ख्यालात, नजरियात, आइडियोलॉजी, ये है बेसिक चीज, या बेसिक चीज हमारी दिखने वाली चीज है.
That's the reverse stereotype, that the moment you see the beard and the skull cap, it's got to be a fundamentalist. Question, I want to get Soha in. She's been listening very patiently all this while. So as somebody who's grown up in a sense in a house of mixed religion, for you, in a sense, do you feel that public gaze? Do you feel, many people have questioned my labeling of, or my looking for the moderate Muslim. Yet there are others who say that we don't hear enough moderate voices. We either hear the religious voices, or we hear the non-believing.
Because I don't think anybody is really interested in what the moderate Muslim has to say, because it's not very interesting. It's sort of boring. We're represented by extremists who have violent opinions, perhaps. I'm talking about vandals. And I think maybe also more recently, I was asking my mother, when I was asked to come on this show, I said, in your time, when you married my father, and you had an interreligious marriage, which presumably at that time, 40 years ago, was more controversial than it is today. Were you ever asked to defend your identity, to defend your choice of religion, what it means to be Hindu or Muslim, the way that we are today? And she said, no, not at all. It was a no-comment issue. You just said no comment and you moved on in life. Over the past, maybe ever since I've been in cinema, certainly, it's an issue. And there is, people do ask me, do you feel aggravated by what is happening as a Muslim? Do you feel the need to stand up for your religion because it is being misrepresented in the media? And I think for me, religion is a very private matter. It's between my maker and me. And it's not something that I would want to discuss in any public forum, even this one. We should be talking about an Indian identity as opposed to a Muslim identity, I think.
Okay, I'm going to take that as my cue to take a break. But is it, as I said to Alec earlier, is it that simple? Is there also a sort of denial within the community? Is the secular debate caught up in a certain amount of dishonesty? And there's also the reverse stereotype. We'll take a quick break and then we'll take the questions that I'm sure a lot of people have here that's coming up after the break. Welcome back to We the People. Is popular culture in a way responsible for stereotyping the image of the Indian Muslim? Or is it a reflection and a sense of some shades of truth at least that the Muslim community sometimes feels defensive about? Before we return to our panel, let's hear from some people in the audience. Yes.
My question is, much as it's easy for a Shahrukh Khan or a Soha Ali Khan or a Kabir Khan to say that we can be liberal and still we can get along in society, what happens to the younger generation of Muslims? Is it easy for them to say that we want to be liberals, we don't want to carry ourselves into the conservative group, or are they actually shadowed by the gather of the people around them?
Who wants to take that? I mean, someone who's had an experience in a sense with straddling between orthodox. Shahrukh, what would you say to your kids? I mean, how important is it for you for them to have a sense of their faith?
No, very clearly they need to have a sense of their faith, because my parents have brought me up with this faith, and I'm very, very proud of this faith. It's taught me a lot of nice things, and I think a lot of the things that I lead in life, though leading an immensely commercial and a glamorous life, so to say, from the outside, I think all the good things that I think I'm doing, because I always go back to my faith and remember, okay, we have to be tolerant, and I want my children to know this faith very
But if your
clearly.
kids asked you, what is my religion, what would you say?
My daughter did ask me one day. She came back and she said, you know, teacher, when somebody asked her, that, are you a Hindu or a Muslim? And I said, say you're a Christian. It's absolutely all right. We are Indians. Let's not go there. But yes, I make them pray as much as I can in the
Both
Islamic
faiths.
way. My wife does it in her faith. And the fact is that we are very clear that we accept it with ease.
Kabir, you wanted to say
I was
something?
just saying it's a very idealistic sort of a thought, but I wish religion was something we were all allowed to choose when we were 21. The issue is we all born into religions. They are habits. We don't choose our religions.
It's an interesting thought.
This point I'd like to comment on. I lecture to college students, and one of the things is, I lecture, do you want to follow the same values as your parents? Why are you a Muslim? Why are you a Hindu? Why are you a Christian? And nobody knows why. And then finally they realize that they've inherited from their parents a religion. But you don't have to.
But as
I
Kabir-
refuse
as
to
Kabir
inherit
said-
from my parents a religion.
But Alec, as
I
Kabir
gave it
said,
up.
religion can often be cultural more than scripture driven.
Yeah.
It's just the exposure you grew up with. Let's take a question from this young lady here. Yes.
I really don't understand what is being a moderate Muslim. I think I'm just a Muslim. I'm a normal Muslim. I don't find any difference wearing a hijab. I don't feel different from any other lady sitting around over here. So what is such a big issue about
Can
it?
I ask you a question?
Yeah,
Suppose you
sure.
had a friend
Yeah.
who was also your faith and they did not want to wear the hijab. Would that be okay with you?
I don't have a problem with what she follows. Though what I follow, what I believe in, I would really like to explain it to her. Okay, see, this is what I believe in. And it depends, it's obviously her own wish. Like faith cannot be forced, but it can always be explained and told, see, this is right and this is wrong. Now it's up to you whether you believe it or you follow it.
Just a minute. I'm sure someone has a question on that, but I want to go back to Karan on this. One of the interesting images of My Name is Khan was Shahrukh's sister-in-law, the character who plays Shahrukh's sister-in-law, being forced after 9/11 to go out without her hijab. And in a sense, that was the vulnerability of the Muslim in post 9/11 America. But you used the hijab in a sense as a symbol of religious independence. But a lot of women have not resolved the question of the headscarf.
To me, the hijab is truly representative of the identity of the woman, and it's also a part of her religion and what brought her up. This came out of our research. I went to various organizations like CARE and ACLU in America, and there were millions, I mean lots of women in America who had to give up the hijab because they didn't want those stares at tube stations or food markets. Families forced them. There were husbands that really forced them to give up the hijab. But eventually, I felt she touched base with herself and her identity. There were moments that we actually had to edit out where throughout there were times where actually she would just, her hand would go towards the head because she just felt different. And that bothered her on an emotional, on a physical level.
Can I just say one thing? I don't think that action condemns. I condemn the people who've done, say, what we showed in the film or anywhere in the world, but I don't condemn it as an anti-religious act. I condemn it as an anti-free will act. If she wants to, faith is about free will. If she wants to wear it, it's absolutely all right. It could be a hijab, it could be a bikini, it could be a t-shirt, it could be a shirt, it could be whatever.
Intimidation.
लेकिन
It
ये
should not
लेकिन ये अगर
intimidate
अपने
you.
शौक से पहन रही हैं
Absolutely
और मैं
right.
अपने शौक से दाढ़ी रख रहा हूँ तो मुझे हक तो है पूरा
Absolutely.
लेकिन मैं मॉडरेट मुस्लिम नहीं हो सकता ये भी एक बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है
नहीं, इतना हमें भी caricature मत करिए मीडिया में. But Soha, you were saying
I
it
was
is
saying again, if it's
intimidation.
free will. I have a problem with people who exert violence or force on you, which is scary. Then as a person, whether you choose to stand up for your identity or not, if somebody tells you you cannot, you must not, that is what I have a problem with. In a country where we're supposed to respect free speech.
Najib, but look at the debate in France. Sarkozy wants to ban any overt religious symbolism, whether it's the turban or the hijab in
That is
public.
ridiculous.
That's ridiculous?
That is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
How can you ban somebody's belief?
It must be personal choice.
There are two aspects here. One is the forcibly taking off of the hijab. You know, such thing always happens when a community is under attack for a circumstance, which is 1984, Sikhs were made to shave off their heads in
Yes.
India. Similarly, a lot of hijabi women were made to take off. I struggle with the other aspect of the statement the young lady made there. She would counsel her friend. Now there lies the problem that when you start counseling, and all proselytizing religions unfortunately believe in counseling, which may not be acceptable.
And Dr. Naik, that's what you do.
Yes, of course, that's my... because that's the verse of the Quran. In Surah Imran, chapter 3, 110, it is the duty of every Muslim, as Allah says, kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhauna 'anil munkar. That we have made you the best of community because you enjoy what is good and forbid what is wrong. If you feel that you are doing something wrong, if you are doing something wrong, if I feel that you're doing an act which will harm you, for example, you're having drugs, so it's my duty as a good human being to tell you don't have drugs, it's going to harm you. That time people won't object. So similarly, when I feel if someone is doing something wrong which is bad for his human body, and if I tell him, so why do people object? That's my belief.
But Kabir would call this a lot of ritualism that creates that construct.
It is not ritualism.
Yeah, so in this whole free will, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just...
I'm not trying to go...
If I could ask you a question, does your mother wear a hijab? Your mother wears a hijab. Now, here's where the free will comes in. It's a thought. I wonder if she would still choose to wear, if her mother was not wearing a hijab and when she came of age, she was given the choice.
It's our own model.
Very difficult.
I would really like to answer this question.
Because I've sort of been born and brought up in a Muslim family, and I've seen this in my own large extended family, and I've seen only the parts of the family where the mother's been wearing hijab, the daughter has taken to hijab, my cousins, and the mother who has not been wearing hijab, strangely, the daughter has not taken up the hijab. So I'm a little confused about this.
So free will is a complicated thing. Okay, I'm seeing lots of hands here before I go back to... Yeah, hang on. Go ahead.
I'm a Muslim. I think the burqa or the hijab should be personal choice. As she said that she is okay with a friend who's not wearing, but she'll explain to her that this is wrong. So that means she does take it somewhere that it's wrong if you're not wearing it. Which is not, because at the end of the day, I don't know Islam too much, but I know that much that's been passed on to me by my parents.
She's entitled to her opinion.
Would you consider it wrong if I told her, darling, wear dresses, not a t-shirt?
No,
Can't we take it as easy as that?
But I would also say, Shahrukh, I'm not comfortable. We'd have a discussion about it.
Yeah, one second. Let me just hear some more voices. Dr. Naik, give me a second. There are lots of voices here. I just want to get some of them.
My mom doesn't wear a hijab. And I remember that when my sister entered her 10th, she's my elder sister, so she opted to wear a hijab because she wanted to wear it. Unfortunately, she was not accepted by the society where we live in, and there used to be continuous query about it, that as to why she wearing a hijab. In fact, all the society used to think that my mom has become very, very strict with my sister.
So you're saying your mother doesn't wear one, but your sister wore one of free will.
That's the society.
That I would accept as free will.
You want to stand up and just make your point, then I go back to the panel.
See, the point is, she decided to take the hijab after her 10th standard. Did anyone ask her why? And if people were being curious about it, I mean, it's natural. If you've seen someone growing up in front of you and her mom doesn't wear a hijab and suddenly she decides to don one, you are going to worry, right? It's like, what's happening? Why is she doing this?
Okay, one second. That's the operative part. You are going to worry. Hang on, guys. Hang on. 1 second. We'll go back to the panel. You want to say something?
Yeah, why would you worry? I mean, tomorrow if I start wearing Western clothes, will you worry about my psychological effect? I don't think so.
Okay, she's saying she used the wrong word. But there's some serious questions at the heart of this, and I want to go back to the construction of that image. Karan, when you as a filmmaker want to portray a Muslim, how important was it for you when you were projecting Shahrukh, and you obviously had a lot of things to say about religion, to make him a practicing Muslim, as Dr. Naik calls it?
We were very clear from the very beginning that there was, Rizwan Khan to me is somebody who professes humanity and is not carrying Islam on his sleeve. Only when he prayed in reverence, he wore the cap. But there was nothing Islamic about his look, because for me, he's an ambassador of humanity, not an ambassador of Islam.
And I think the best line that I've heard in any Bollywood film, when Zareen Wahab, as the mother, says, there are no good Hindus and bad Hindus, there are no good Muslims and bad Muslims, there are good human beings and bad human beings, and that is the whole point. I congratulate you, sir.
There are fissures, there are fault lines in our society, and we are trying to navigate them here. And Najib, since you said, who are these images? These are not the people that most Muslims would recognize. I'm sort of interested in the construct of that image. Where does it come from?
I am also very concerned at these images. How that image has come, partly it has come from the deprivation of the Muslim society and the ghettoization of Muslim society and their desire to hang out together. It comes from Muslims not getting homes in places, moving into ghettos and then surviving in their own little dens. There is where it happens. It also happens, much thanks to, I mean, we have two doyens from the film industry here, that the image of Muslims that have been done, this pan chewing fellows, always saying adab and so on and so forth, and this kabbal, is not so. But a large number of these images have come from this.
But that's no longer the case in modern cinema. The projection of Islam has completely changed. This used to be a case in the 70s and 80s, and I do take blame as a representative of the movie industry, but it's not the case anymore.
But Shahrukh, is there an image of your community in images around you that has bothered you? Maybe not today, but growing up or whatever, where you didn't recognize yourself?
Something is bothering me now, that we are discussing so much, and actually I completely agree with Madni Sahab. Are we talking about just the look of Muslims? Is it not a deeper thing than that?
No.
I think it is a much
not as simple.
I mean, if it's just a simple thing, we're discussing so much about the fact कि हमारी दाढ़ी होनी चाहिए, skull cap होना चाहिए, hijab पहनना चाहिए, कि उसका warism होना चाहिए. I'm just feeling कि is it only a matter of look? I don't think so.
No, of course it's not.
I think it is not.
Of course
so I think we should go beyond that. Not here only. I'm just talking as generally in the world कि ये सब तो छोड़ ही देते हैं. अभी वो French Prime Minister को अगर कोई problem है हिजाब से तो है. वो उनकी कंट्री का रूल है, उनका हमको भी उसके अगेंस्ट स्टैंड नहीं चाहिए. जाने दीजिए.
A lunatic fringe has begun to represent our community.
But that's what I wanted to talk about.
And that definitely films and media is to blame.
That lunatic fringe is represented in the media because the non-lunatic mainstream is not.
Yeah, it's not
because it's not.
Yes, but where is the Muslim, the moderate Muslim, got a leader who's speaking out against them? Where is today's Jinnah? Where is someone who, by the way...
Jinnah created Pakistan.
Jinnah was the most secular person you could ever meet.
In his
I happened to play...
In his personal life. But
no, to the Pakistan First Assembly. It was a completely...
Okay, let's not debate Jinnah, but you raised the important question
there is
of
no
where
Muslim
is that
leader.
And Shahrukh is right in saying, go beyond the image. And I come to you.
Absolutely, I would like to know, मुझे लगता है कि मदनी साहब मैं नहीं मानता था, सच बता रहा हूँ मैं, आपके सामने हूँ. मैं अगर इनको ऐसा देखूं, तो ये मेरी भी गलती है कि मैं नहीं समझता शायद मदनी साहब moderate या less practicing या more practicing Muslim. Bottom line is that however he looks, I have to give him a chance.
What both Kabir and Alec have raised about the fringe representing the bulk. And Dr. Naik, let's come to them key questions going beyond the image. Of the fact that there are still questions raised about fundamentalist thought. Not that somebody is a Muslim and is a terrorist, but that somebody sympathizes with the cause. For example, when you are questioned, and I know because you deal with live audiences all the time, about groups like the Taliban, groups like the Al-Qaeda, groups like the Lashkar-e-Taiba, how do you resolve those questions? What is Osama bin Laden for you?
Main thing what I say, that I cannot base my answer on the media. Because if you ask me, how is bin Laden? If I have to give my answer based on BBC, CNN, it will be against the Quran. Quran says...
You mean you still have doubts about Osama bin Laden?
Yes. Why? I'll tell you why. I have my doubts. Because Quran says...
That's a really provocative thing to say, and some would say would deeply stereotype.
Why? Because I have seen the DVDs produced by the 75 scientists of America. They say it is impossible for few Arabs to come and do the Twin Tower. I have seen, because I'm a man who travels throughout the world.
Come on, Dr. Naik. Come on, Dr. Naik.
And I have seen many DVDs, and I can give it to you if you see the loose change, if you see 9/11. What I have done, I'm a man of research. And Quran says, when you get the information, check it up before you pass on to the second. I'm not saying bin Laden is a terrorist or a saint. I say, I don't know. Because the proof that has been given, I've got counter proof by the other people.
You haven't seen his Al Jazeera videos?
Of course I've seen.
That's not evidence.
I'll tell you, I'd gone to Malaysia. There was a couple who were doctors who went to Malaysia. And they told that, people normally say that the Taliban are beating the women. So she told me, she was the gynecologist, those people can't be Taliban. I said, why? I thought they were Taliban. They said, I've been in Afghanistan. The way the Taliban tied the turban, the people that were shown on Natural Geography, people that were shown on BBC and CNN, they can't be Taliban because the turban were not...
But then, there is no end to conspiracy theories. But there is a deeper problem here, sir. There's so many millions of people. And I want to say this to you with no offense. There are so many millions of Muslims who follow you, who hang on every word you say. And you are saying this to them. Najib, is there a danger in that?
That's the reason I cannot say something wrong. I'm not saying he's a saint. Because I've got
Okay,
no
okay,
proof.
you made your
I
point.
cannot
You
say
made your
the same
point.
either in
Najib and then Madani
I
Sahib on
really
this.
must intervene because I think
सफाई देनी पड़ेगी
मदनी साहब की
जो बात
सफाई
नाइक
नहीं।
साहब कहेंगे उसकी सफाई मदनी साहब को ही देनी पड़ेगी इनसे और इनसे नहीं ले सकते आप सफाई
नहीं उनसे भी लूंगी
चलिए ठीक
उनसे भी लूंगी
Barkha, I would normally say this, but as a Muslim, I think that this argument has gone to a point of ridiculousness.
Completely.
When you start defending the
Completely.
Taliban
Yeah.
and the Mujahideen
Firstly,
and
I
so
mean,
on and
which
so
factory
forth,
did Taliban
this,
come from that
this
they've all wore the-
discussion is
you've
going
seen
to
them,
be
I've seen
ridiculous. I mean, we have to be reasonable, and we have to understand that there are a large section of regular Muslims who are against any kind of extreme Islamization. Islamization by itself is welcome. But the kind of interpretation that the people are giving is absolutely not kosher.
ओके
जी,
कभी
मैं भी कहूंगा
हाँ
मैं
जी
भी कहूंगा जितने भी ये लोग हैं जिनके बारे में आप सवाल कर रही हैं और दो डिफरेंट तरह के जवाब मिले हैं आपको मेरा फर्म बिलीव पूरे एतमाद के साथ मुझे ये यकीन है कि ये जो लोग भी ये काम कर रहे हैं चाहे वो किसी भी नाम से हों ये ह्यूमैनिटी के तो दुश्मन हैं ही हैं इस्लाम के भी दुश्मन हैं इस्लाम के नुकसान
At the heart of this is the deeper question of who speaks. You know, I take Shahrukh's point, we focus too much on the image. Then I take Soha's point that we focus too much on the fringe. What do we focus on? I mean, I think at least we would agree on that.
Too much on the religious identity of the lunatics also, or the guys we call terrorists. Why should we represent them or identify them as? I've met them. I mean, you've met them in Kashmir. I've seen them in Afghanistan. Half of them seem to have other reasons. Qasab has joined his organization to get free access to guns and money. Not because he felt for jihad or Islam. I mean, that was the point, in fact, in my film, New
That
York.
did come up in all my research as well, actually. 8 or 9 out of 10 of them are not even doing this for religion.
Not for jihad. Shahrukh, so what do you want to take Alex's point? He's saying, who's the person? Who's my leader? Who is speaking for me as a Muslim? Some would say to you, Alec, why do you need someone to speak for you as a Muslim?
I don't feel the need. I have various things that I'm passionate about. I've been educated, but yet I feel passionate about lack of literacy in this country. I feel, you know, sometimes that there's stereotyping of women in commercial cinema. I feel offended sometimes by a lot of things. Not necessarily something that is touched by me personally or not, but certainly I would feel the need more to stand up for secular ideals, for national ideals, as opposed to divisive identity.
But then the fatwa that was passed said very clearly that anyone, whether a Muslim or a non-Muslim, who commits an act of violence against innocent people is committing an act against the Quran, which says if you do that, you are committing an act against the whole of humanity.
Isn't this paradoxical that on the one hand we are saying keep religion out of it. On the other hand, we actually do need our religious clergy, in a sense, as we did with this fatwa, to sort of restore the perspective about Islam.
Every job, I won't call it a job, but whether it's a religion, whether it's any other aspect of life, specialists have to be there. And I truly believe the clergy, the ulemas, the mullahs, they're all these specialists.
You don't think they're the fringes as
No, I don't think so. I don't think you cannot even, I don't think you can ignore them. I just think it's very important that this whole culture for every religion, the guys who know it the best need to be there. We need to understand, maybe more than we need to understand, they need to explain it in a way which is understandable. Yes. And I truly believe, like if you were to ask me personally, like you asked, okay, why do we talk about a religious identity? Whether, I don't have a choice now. This is what I'm born as. And I love being born as a Muslim.
You do have a choice, sir.
No, I mean I didn't have
I had a choice and I gave it up at the age of 18 when I could vote.
No, absolutely. I make the choice. I had it, I've made it, and I want to be Muslim and I'm very proud to be one. Now I am letting my children know about the religion. I think I know the best in the most understandable, nice manner. And inshallah, they will also be Muslims, but I'm not going to teach them perhaps the clergy very strict way of Islam. I will teach them the way I think.
Not a puritanical interpretation.
Absolutely. So I want to teach it to them like this.
Okay, I need to take a quick break, but this young girl's been trying to make a point for a long time.
Yeah, actually this is a real life incident that happened in class. Now this girl, she just stands up and she says that, why do you differentiate? What if a mother has a good child and a bad boy? Now who would you really, would the mother really say, do away with the bad son? Or would she train him to become a good guy? And, you know, indirectly, in an inch, she was identifying the bad guy for a Muslim, to be a Muslim, and the good boy to be a Hindu, which was very surprising, and she didn't really realize it, she being a Muslim herself.
All right, so there's you want to say something?
I want to know that the definition of Islam and Muslim keeps on changing from person to person, or with the same one definition of Islam and Muslim? Is there any source or authentic source to know what is the right definition of Islam and Muslim?
But is there a... So you want to take that before I take a break? We all interpret faith in a very private way.
I believe so. And I haven't had a secular upbringing, and I've read the Bible, and I've read parts of the Gita and parts of the Quran, and I think that ultimately it is between, as I said earlier, God and yourself and your personal private relationship with Him, and only He will judge whether you are a good anything.
All right, we'll take a quick break. In our last segment, what does our panel believe is at the heart of the minority debate? What disturbed Karan so much, aside from that conversation in New York, that this is a theme that seems to resurface in a lot of your work? What is simmering under the surface? We'll take a look at that in final comments after the break. Welcome back to We the People. In this last segment, what is at the heart of the debate around the minority identity in India? It seems to be an abiding theme more recently in the Indian film industry. Why is that? What do they believe is the central crisis? Before we get final comments from our panelists, let's hear some voices from the audience.
There is a question about why we focus on the lunatic fringe as such, and that most of them do not, in fact, and I agree, most of them do not turn to terrorism for anything to do with religion. But sadly, the ones who are turning to terrorism are using religion as their cloak. Your religion is being used falsely. Somewhere can we say that you have a duty to defend it?
Definitely the moderate voice, or so-called moderate voice, should speak up. Now the problem is that the moderates are so frittered away and they're so sort of blasé about things. They don't have a platform. And frankly, we don't get that much space on the media as the lunatics get.
और जिनको आप एक्सट्रीमिस्ट समझते हैं वो आकर के खड़े होकर लड़ रहे हैं, है ना?
How much access do Muslims have in a routine corporate world and all that? Like when a CV comes in front of you, does a corporate take a pause, like the person sitting in that hot seat to give a job and all that? So,
Shahrukh, quick comment from you, because we've had some people from the film industry who have spoken about it is difficult to get a house for a Muslim in Mumbai. You said you've never really experienced any real prejudice. But do you know people who have?
I wouldn't know, and I can just, because I think I should just joke about this. I went, that's why I didn't go looking for a flat. I thought I'll just buy a whole building. But I'd be very honest about this whole thing. I think कहीं पे कभी कभार ऐसा issue हर चीज में, चाहे आप हिंदू हैं, चाहे मुसलमान हैं, vegetarian हैं, non-veg हैं, ये problems होती हैं. I think we should just try to contain it a little and not make it an issue. हर religion के अंदर fundamentalists can mislead youth by giving this garb of this opium. They say religion is the opiate of the masses. You can convince anyone कि ऐसा होगा, आप चलिए. Good oratorship. Young people who don't have a job, easily misled by Islamic fundamentalist or Hindu fundamentalist, or if there is something as a Christian fundamentalist.
All right.
I'm a big fan of yours, but Qurban, I think it used sensationalism and sort of making the terrorist a hero. It made me feel like I was supposed to like Saif Ali Khan at the end of it. I mean, that's not right.
We never wanted you to like or dislike. We were going through the beats of a character. And actually, there was a lot of negativity that we got. And we were saying that we were succumbing to stereotyping as well, which was never the case, never the intention.
I completely disagree with the film Qurban. And I've told him so.
No, but what disturbed you about Qurban?
I just felt there was a group of people in hijab, with a dadi, with a skull cap. Everybody was bad. I did not see one good person. ऐसे कहाँ पर होता है? This is the image sometimes we have of the fringe Muslim groups, and I don't think we should in any which way. I mean, it's a picture. I also don't take
possibly it was not our intention and it went.
Maybe, I mean, I'm all for making whatever kind of film you want to and putting it out there.
Absolutely.
I'm against censorship. But maybe as a society we're not ready for it, and we require some kind of sensitive filmmaking. Or
really has to be the last question.
Why are people just looking at the people who are killing other people for jihad? I'm going through jihad. There are 50 people asking me that you're a Muslim, you pray. I said, yes, I pray. So they're like, what are your views about the Taliban? I'm striving, I'm struggling myself, explaining to them. And why don't the people portray the good side of jihad? What I'm doing, what he's doing, what everyone is doing.
I have to take last comments, and let me start with you, Dr. Naik.
The Muslims should know how to reply to the misconception about Islam. Today, if you analyze the media, for example, just about more than a week back, you found in the headlines that there was a bomb in Pune, about 19 people were killed, suspects Muslim. Same time, there were about 16 policemen killed,
That was
killed
also
by
a
the mob.
headline.
It came
That
as
was
newsbrief.
also a headline.
Why are you saying Muslims killing? So the others are Maoists, the others are, you know, some other organization, but the Muslims are a religious grouping. It's weird. Why don't we say, you know, whatever those people are? I mean, why do we always have to divide it in?
Yet, Madani Saab, you felt the need to use the Deoband to do that fatwa against terrorism. कहाँ से आया वो fatwa, क्यों आया?
जब ये नहीं खड़े हो रहे थे
आपने पूछा नहीं
नहीं, पर
जब ये नहीं खड़े हुए, लोग नहीं खड़े हो रहे थे। आज भी यही पोजीशन है कि इस्लाम के नाम पर जिहादी तहरीक चलाने की बाहर से कुछ कोशिशें हो रही। हमने कहा ये जिहादी नहीं है, फसादी है।
Reason to ask why that fatwa was launched was exactly that, and the idea was remove the word Islamic from terrorism. There are terrorism by people who are practicing a non-Islamic action. That was the thing, and I'd just like to say one thing, since this is the last chance. When Indira Gandhi was assassinated, I was so upset, I wrote just a few lines, which I'd like you to have. It said, I am an Indian, not because I am a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or a Sikh. I am an Indian because if I am not, who am I?
Najib, last thoughts?
Ghalib has said, हम कहाँ के दाना थे, दाना comes from दानिशमंद, intellectual. हम कहाँ के दाना थे, किस हुनर में यकता थे, बेसबब हुआ जा गालिब, दुश्मन आसमां अपना.
So,
I think I have a number of identities as someone who lives in Bombay. I happen to be Muslim. I am an Indian. And I think that my aspirations have nothing to do with my religion or my faith. I mean, I want a big house, I want to get married, I want a family, I want to be successful. And that's who I am.
Karan?
I've always felt very strongly, and I feel strongly because it comes from a space of understanding around me. I'm not saying a film can change a mind space, it can't change the mental makeup of this country, but if you can go back home and question your beliefs about a community, then I think maybe I've serviced cinema in some way.
I personally feel as a Muslim, I'd like to tell every Muslim that if you don't know your religion well enough, if you're not able to practice it well enough, if your knowledge is less, Allah Ta'ala aapko maaf kar denge. Lekin being a Muslim, if you're not able to explain your religion to the other people who are not understanding it, ye dunya aapko maaf nahi karegi. You need to be very, very clear that we cannot take this stand ki agar aap samajhte nahi mat samjho, main to ladunga. Nahi. Acceptance of this and explaining is what I think in the long run will sort out the problem.
Well, I think it's fair to say, where we started, that there is a crisis, but I think to hear all of you today, you may not agree on everything, but you agree on a lot of basic core things at the heart of it. And one is, I think as Kabir said, that terrorism doesn't have a religion.